is a further reason why we should not regard science and God as opposed. Science has its limits. The Nobel Prize winner Sir Peter Medawar wrote, "The existence of a limit to science is made clear by its inability to answer childlike elementary questions having to do with first and last things. Questions such as, how did everything begin? What are we all here for? What is the point of living?" The very success of science is due to the narrowness of its focus. It tends to concentrate on the how questions, but not on the questions of purpose, value, and meaning. Now, the Bible concentrates mainly on those questions, although, as we have seen, it does have some very important things to say about the origin of the physical universe. Science has shown that the Earth occupies what is called the Goldilocks zone. That is, its position in space and its constitution are just right so that it can sustain life. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, etc., etc. Furthermore, physicists have demonstrated that many of the fundamental constants of nature, from the energy levels in the carbon atom to the rate at which the universe is expanding, have just the right values for life to exist. If you change any of them just a little, then the universe would become hostile to life and incapable of supporting it. For instance, Paul Davies tells us that if the ratio of the strong nuclear force to the electromagnetic force had been different by 1 part in 10 to the power 16, that's 1 with 16 zeros after it, no stars could have formed. Again, the ratio of the electromagnetic force constant to the gravitational force constant must be equally delicately balanced. Increase it by only 1 part in 10 to the power 40 and only small stars can exist. Decrease it by the same amount and there will only be large stars. Both large stars and small stars are needed to have a universe like ours. The large ones to produce elements in their thermonuclear furnaces, and only the small ones burn long enough to sustain a planet with life. So we need both. According to Paul Davies, that's the kind of accuracy a marksman would need to hit a coin on the far side of the observable universe 20 billion light years away. And so we arrive at the idea of a multiverse. And roughly speaking, the notion here is that there are so many universes, some suggest infinitely many, whatever that means, that anything that can happen will happen in some universe somewhere. It's not surprising then, so the argument goes, that there is at least one universe like ours. From a theoretical point of view, God could create, of course, as many universes as he pleases. Of itself then, the multiverse concept doesn't rule God out. There are weighty voices within science. For instance, John Polkinghorne, also an eminent Cambridge theoretical physicist, rejects the multiverse concept. "Let us recognize these speculations for what they are," he writes. "They are not physics, but in the strictest sense, metaphysics. There is no purely scientific reason to believe in a whole ensemble of universes. By construction, these other worlds are unknowable by us. A possible explanation of equal intellectual respectability and, to my mind, greater economy and elegance would be that this one world is the way it is because it is the creation of the will of a creator who purposes that it should be so." And famous cosmologist Edward Harrison reacts very similarly. Here, he says, is the cosmological proof of the existence of God, the design argument of Paley, updated and refurbished. Take your choice. Blind chance that requires multitudes of universes, or design that requires only one. Many scientists, he goes on, when they admit their views, incline towards the teleological or design argument. The postulation of many universes does not in any case necessarily increase the probability of there being a bio-friendly universe like ours, as a mathematical investigation of the so-called inverse gambler's fallacy shows. I'm tempted to add that belief in God seems, in any case, an arguably more rational option if the alternative is to believe that every other universe that possibly can exist does exist. The fine-tuning of the universe is scientific evidence that points towards the existence of an intelligent creator. What it says in effect is that this universe is very special. It has exactly the right construction in order for it to be possible to have life within it. Now, the Genesis account says something very similar, though in very different language. It tells us that there was a sequence of steps that start with the creation of the universe and end with the creation of human beings. That is, there is purpose in creation, the purpose of having human beings that, alone among all creatures, are made in God's image. This gives human beings a unique dignity and value, and it is here that we find the source of morality. What is more, Genesis emphasizes that each step in the creation narrative is initiated by the phrase, "and God said." That is, you do not get from one step to the next step without God speaking. It is surely obvious that this is the exact opposite of a mindless, unguided process demanded by naturalism. This is the genius of God's creative intelligence in action. And one of the most marvelous features of life ever discovered surely bears evidence of this. In each one of the 10 trillion living cells in the human body, there's to be found a coded word written in a chemical alphabet, the human genome. It's the longest word ever discovered, being 3.5 billion letters long. Perhaps the best known atheist was the eminent philosopher Antony Flew, who attacked Christianity both in writing and in public debate. However, much to the chagrin of the new atheists, Flew announced that he had become convinced that the scientific investigation of DNA had shown, by the almost unbelievable complexity of the arrangements which are needed to produce life, that intelligence must have been involved. Flew insisted that his major change of mind was due to obeying Socrates' famous command, "We must follow the argument wherever it leads." This is one of the main reasons why the statement, "In the beginning was the Word, all things were made by him," makes far more sense to me as a scientist than the atheist's assertion that the origin of life involves nothing more than unguided, mindless natural processes.